A very good morning to you, and thank you so much for having us on. Welcome to the Buy Local, Grow Local, the Power of Consumer Choices webinar. This is something absolutely incredible put together by the proudly South African team. It is so incredible to be with you this morning. My name is Sia Sangweni. I am a media personality, and for the duration of this morning, I'm very honored to be your facilitator. Once again, thank you so much for having us on. Welcome to this sharing of lessons, this offering for growth and insight, and this reminder of how great potential lies in South Africa. The more we can build and the more we can work together. So we'll be together all the way until 12 midday. And here's exactly why we are hosting this conversation today. And I have to say, here's why I am so excited to be part of this conversation. So in today's globalized economy, international brands and international products often dominate the marketplace. We know it to be absolutely true, especially in the South African context. So that makes it very easy for them to overlook the transformative benefits of supporting local businesses, and also for consumers to sometimes overlook that. So choosing to buy local, in my opinion, and I hope you take this away at the end of today's session, isn't just a fad. It isn't just a trend that should last for a short amount of time, but this should be a movement that more and more South Africans, especially South African businesses and South African industries, can all adopt, because we see what the tangible results are and possibly can be as well. We see the results between you and I, we see it in our families, we see it in our communities, and overall we see it in the country at large. So buying local not only strengthens national pride, but it can also bring about far-reaching impacts that foster economic resilience, sustainable development, and community upliftment within South Africa. So this is exactly why we are having this conversation today. This webinar will explore these themes. It will offer insights into why prioritizing local products and services is key to building a very stronger and self-sustained economy. Listen, I know that is absolutely true and absolutely important at this time as we gear up towards the festive season, and let it last longer than the festive season. And this is something that we continue going on and really sustain in our country. So what you have to look forward to over the next little while is that we have experts from diverse fields, including consumer advocacy, government support, and small business development as well. They'll each be sharing their perspectives on the value of local consumer choices. And just get ready to take down notes and learn a lot. I'm really chuffed to be here, and I hope that you are able to stay with us all the way until midday. So proudly South African members, if you aren't a member just yet, certainly please do read up more about the organization. I will be shortly introducing someone who'll be able to give more insight and information on this organization as well. So proudly South African members, though, or small business owners, entrepreneurs, and even engaged consumers will certainly be finding this session particularly valuable, as it highlights both strategic and also practical aspects of supporting local. So welcome to this essential discussion. Once again, my name is Sia Sangweni, and I'm so thrilled to be your facilitator today. This is central to Proudly South African's mission to promote local products, services, and sustainable economic growth. Let's have a conversation. Feel free to share your comments, your opinions in our live chat, or wherever you are on social media. Do engage with us as Proudly South African on X, formerly known as Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram as well. And by the end of this webinar, we certainly hope that you have a better understanding of the critical role all of these various aspects play in shaping South Africa's economic future through consumer choices, and how together as a nation, as industries, as individuals, we can create a more resilient and prosperous nation for all. So with that said, let us get underway. Speaking of proudly South Africans mission, let's begin with someone who can certainly tell us more about it. She's the Chief Officer for Marketing and Communication at Proudly South African. She will unpack what the organization does. She'll give us an overview of that and also the localization mandate. And let me say, it is always a delight to get to be in her presence. Please welcome and good morning to you. Happy Makuma Longiti.
Good morning, Sia. Thank you so much for that warm welcome, and good morning to my fellow speakers online, as well as the delegates that are joining us on different digital platforms. Thank you so much. Just to say that, please, there's a bit of a action where I am. I'm on a business trip. I'm hoping that that a bit of a noise in the background is bearable. And I am going to quickly share my screen so we can get on with the business of the day. Thank you so much for this opportunity this morning. So we are talking about the power of consumer choices this morning, and I think for us it is the most critical for any business that firstly wants to claim their space in business, stay relevant, and most importantly to have access to market. I think it goes without saying that consumers have a choice. Have many choices, choices. We are exposed to many products, on a daily, on digital platforms, in shopping malls, everywhere. I mean, when you pick up your device, the likelihood of going through or seeing, adverts on products and all of that is quite huge. And so how do you as a business stay afloat, stay relevant, claim your space, and really just be in it to win it? And so I will leave that narrative to the experts that we have online today, which I'm also just looking forward to hearing. But I'm going to focus quickly on why we exist as Proudly South African. We always don't want to, assume that everybody who may have come across the logo of Proudly South African knows what it stands for, what we do, and what our mandate is. Some of you online may have come across this information before, but be that as it may, it's always a nice refresher for us to keep reminding you as an audience to the work that we do, why it is important that we support local. And we were started by Madiba 23 years ago, when he was fighting the three triple challenges, which is inequality, unemployment, and poverty. The slides that I will skip in the interest of time, because I feel it's information that, out there and you've gone through. But the reason why we exist as Proudly South African is that we are tasked with the responsibility to find ways that are relatable, that are, ways we can use rather to educate South Africans and to remind them about the importance of buying locally manufactured products and supporting local services. And the buy local phenomenon is a tried and tested one the world over. Many countries, some of which you can see on the screen, practice this phenomenon. And on the African continent, we are told as Proudly South African that our campaign works well. And some of the, African, the countries in the continent come to us, to engage us on how they can also, jazz up their own buy local, campaigns, or even how to start it This buy local phenomenon, like I said, it's a tried and tested one the world over, and it's in many countries do it for the benefit of their own economy, and in South Africa we are no different. We are driven by that, what you see on the screen, think globally, but act local. The responsibility, starts with us first, because if we as a people do not support locally manufactured products for many reasons, but most importantly, to create more jobs, to sustain the jobs that we currently have as a country, and to ensure that our economy is in good standing. And to ensure that the rand rotates within the borders of South Africa before, we prioritize on anything that comes outside of the country. The role that we play as proudly South African, we run an SMME support ecosystem. I mean, we are a member-based campaign, and in our database, we have big companies that are affiliated with Proudly South African and pay us a fee for it, and they then have carte blanche to use our logo on their marketing collateral, on their products, and all of that. But I'll take you through that in the next couple of slides. But we also accommodate small businesses, SMMEs, entrepreneurship, that we pay a large focus on, as much as we do a lot of work in the private sector, public sector, and of course, consumers. We pride ourselves as an entity that is intentional and drives the access to market program, because we of the view that it's one thing for somebody to have a great product or a great IP that they, and they work within the borders of South Africa and they create jobs here at home. But if you don't have a market to sell your product to, or your great idea to, it then defeats the purpose. The likelihood is that your business will suffer. You will shut down, you will lay off staff, you will retrench, you will close down your business. And that obviously then contributes to the bigger problem we have as a country, which is unemployment. And so this a structure you see on the screen now speaks to access to markets, where we facilitate all of that. Every SMME, every company needs information to be able to operate. We get involved in sharing information about tax obligations that any business has. Any business that operates wants to be productive. Compliance is a big issue, where at times we come across small businesses who think compliance is a non-issue. But, as a business, for you to be able to have access to, firstly, markets, and you can't have access to markets if you don't have, some of the programs that are put in place by us and many of our stakeholders, like financial and non-financial programs. Those things assist you to then run a profitable business, but most importantly, access to the market. Support, any business needs support. We also help with IPs and trademarks and funding, like I said, financial and non-financial programs. And so the importance of localization, which is what Proudly South African is largely about, localization is going to be our saving grace. We need to localize as much as we can as a country, as businesses, whether it's the private sector, the public sector. We just have a responsibility and an obligation to localize as a country. Just going back to what I said earlier on about the fact that the buy local movement is a tried and tested method the world over. Even also those countries, have their own localization agenda and localization narrative, which is exactly what we have as a country, and also as proudly South African. And this really speaks to creating jobs, like I say, and retaining them, skills development, economic development, empowerment, improving living standards for our people, creating jobs. The one thing that I want to emphasize is that we all know that unemployment takes away takes away dignity. When people have jobs and they are able to put a loaf of bread on the table for their family, that's dignity. When people are able to take care of themselves, in their for their personal needs, that's dignity. So unemployment is something that cannot be underplayed. It's a human right, if you like, to increase the GDP of the country and balance the of trade, in terms of increase of imports and exports. Our mandate, I've alluded to this before, it's really about finding ways and being intentional and consistent on asking and reminding South Africans to own it, to own our own, so to speak, and to be constantly reminded that the economy of our country is in our hands. We've got 4 focus areas, which is the public sector, general public, the private sector, and the service sector. I did speak to the fact that we are a member-based campaign earlier on, and I just quickly want to run through the criteria we look at. Our facilitator, Sia, also made mention earlier on that for some of you who are online, who may not be, members of Proudly South African as yet, there's always an opportunity, and this is how you go about it. This is how you do it. We look at 4 criteria for us to then be able to give you the 2 thumbs up and embrace you and incorporate you into our ecosystem. Is that we look at local content, 50% or more of the making of your product, whatever it may be, in whichever sector it may be. Maybe clothing, textile, footwear, leather sector, it may be poultry, it may be sugar, it may be agro-processing, furniture, automotive, whatever it may be, even service for that matter, is that 50% of the making of the actual product has to happen within the borders of South Africa. You have to demonstrate to us that in the course of making your product, you have employed South Africans in that process. We understand that there's components that you may have to bring into the country. For example, the clothing sector, we simply don't have enough fabric in South Africa or leather, and so we import some of that, which is okay, it's understandable. So there's components that you may have to bring in. So if 50% or more of the making of the product is local, then we're good to go. One tick, done. Quality, it's one thing for us as Proudly South African to say buy local to, local is lekker, rather. But it's got to be great quality product, whatever it may be. You may be making shoes, handbags, but, a consumer can't use your handbag for a month and thereafter the strips, or the head, whatever it is, starts to fall apart. So quality is a big part of that. So we've had that as well. The last 2, standards are softer issues, but just as important. Environmental standards. In the course of doing your work or running your business, are you aware of the environment around you? Do you protect it? Do you have, policies in place that speak to that? And last but not least is fair labor practices. Do you conform to the labor laws of the country? And if we tick all of these boxes, then you are, certified as a proudly South African business or product. And we use, industry bodies in different sectors that we work with to be able to help us to vet your business. This is the structure. Payment structure. I won't spend too much time on that, but I think it's important to know that if you're a multinational business, generating a certain, level of revenue, you would pay us 100,000 rand per annum for many access to market opportunities and deals throughout the year. And if you're an entrepreneur, you would pay, or a SMME, you would pay us 500 rand per annum for endless access to market opportunities. I'm going to skip some of the access to market opportunities. I mean, and I'm doing this to try and drive feet to our website and to our socials, about the many access to market opportunities we have as a campaign that designed to assist local businesses to work. Too many for us to mention on this platform today in the interest of time. But we are also very happy to share the presentation that I am going through now with you for you to have a look at when you have some time. We have a program called Will You Commit to Job Creation, where we go out there and we ask businesses to commit to their procurement spend, for a period of time. You can imagine when you see a new building come up where it's one of the banks, building, another, operation elsewhere, or even renovating their businesses. You can imagine, there's furniture to be procured. There's so many things to be procured, but also just on a daily, businesses procure a lot of stuff to be able to operate. And Will You Commit is about that, even if it's delicacies that you need in your business, like teas and coffees and milk, and little things that may be seen as little, but they contribute to this narrative. You may be a hotel chain building a new hotel. We all know that you would need tiling and carpeting and flat screens in the room, linen, cutlery, crockery. I mean, the list is endless, and we speak to all sectors to ask those businesses to commit. For example, just a quick example before I conclude what I wanted to share with you today, the types of commitments. So banks, I spoke about banks earlier on. When a new bank building goes up, they would need furniture, uniform, promotional material, stationery. Schools would need uniform, furniture, reading material, stationery, and all of that. Hospitals would need, just like hotels, linen, medical equipment. The automotive sector would need different components, machinery, uniform as well. Retailers would need products on shelf space, shop fittings, and all of that, just to give you an idea what Will You Commit speak about. There's a big focus on consumer activities that we do in our efforts to spread the narrative, to keep the localization agenda intact, but also just to remind South Africans that you can start your journey, which is our campaign for this festive season. You can start your journey and end your journey utilizing local products, on a daily basis. So there's a lot of, because ultimately, whether you're in the private sector or the public sector, the one thing we all have in common, irrespective of where we sit, is that we are consumers. Every day we need to consume something. I'm hoping that with what we've shared with you this morning gives you an idea of some of the, why we exist. I mean, there's a whole lot. We need a day, to share with you everything that Proudly South African does. But in a nutshell, this is just to give you an example, some of the examples in a tone, to what we do. And I'm hoping that we're able to absorb some of the things we shared with you today. But like I said, Asiya, we're happy to share the presentation with our attendees today, and we are easily available and ready to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. More than information, that was inspiring and that was reaffirming. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Always on a mission, always very busy. So we do appreciate the time that you've given us this morning. That's Happy Makumalungiti, Chief Officer of Marketing and Communication at Proudly South African. And thank you once again for your insight. I love that. That's a call to action. That's starting your journey. And also, she spoke a little earlier about owning our own as a nation. I think all of these are reminders to us about what more we can do once we really and truly prioritize localization. So certainly giving us a glimpse into the incredible work that Proudly South African does. Please do visit their website on www.proudlysa.co.za for more information. Once again, that is www.proudlysa.co.za for more information. A big thank you once again to Happy Makumalungiti for giving us a few moments today to share her insights and why she does exactly what she does. And 8 years in, she recently celebrated that. That's no small feat. 8 years in, driving this incredible movement that is absolutely necessary in our country. So let's keep that conversation going on. If you have any questions, any comments, please do add them to our live chat, or please do engage with us wherever you are watching this live stream. It might be on our LinkedIn page, it might be on Facebook, it might be on X, wherever it is. Please do share it with us, because at the end of today's session, we'll also briefly have a Q&A session where we can get any one of our speakers today to answer any questions or comments that you might have. Speaking of that, let us move on with our program. If you have just tuned in, thank you so much for doing so. My name is Sia Sangweni. I am today's facilitator, and welcome to the Buy Local, Grow Local webinar. We are looking at the power of consumer choices and how it plays a pivotal role in our country's economy. Moving on now, I'd like to introduce someone who can be able to educate us on consumer rights and also focus on making informed choices that benefit local businesses. She is representing the National Consumer Commission and is a spokesperson and media relations manager. Similarly to something that Happy noted a little while earlier, perhaps if I went on and read her full CV, we might be here the whole day, but I'll briefly say that she has served as media liaison manager and spokesperson of the National Consumer Commission since 2019. She is an experienced and very enthusiastic communications manager with over 10 years of expertise in media relations and crisis communications and content creation. You name it, she's probably done it. And also her background includes work with various entities, including national government departments and the private sector. Please welcome, and over to you, Phetho Ndaba.
Thank you so much, Sia. Oh my gosh, I feel so honored. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And good morning to you, South Africa. Of course, it's such a beautiful day today, and we're excited to be sharing, the Consumer Protection Act with all of us. Number one, to ensure that we do comply, but also to understand our responsibility, especially as suppliers of goods and services in the Republic of South Africa. Umakumalo said something very interesting, Sia, when she said, when you look at, in the spirit of buying local, there's an issue when it comes to fabric, that we still get fabric from other countries. And I think we have noticed that as the NCC as well. But before we even get there, let's just simply start by introducing ourselves as the National Consumer Commission. Of course, we were established by the Act, the Consumer Protection Act of 2008 under Section 85, where we get all the powers in as far as the Consumer Protection Act is concerned. Number one, to receive complaints from consumers, to investigate those complaints, to mediate where possible. And of course, we issue compliance notices where we feel this issue can be resolved without us, taking the matter to the tribunal. We also negotiate settlement agreements with some suppliers, if they're willing to say, okay, it's fine, we agree that we might have offended the CPA, conclude those, take the settlement to the tribunal. We'll refer matters to the tribunal, of course, where we cannot resolve the matter between ourselves and the supplier. or even to other courts in the Republic of South Africa. And of course, we have also established two ombuds in South Africa. One is the consumer goods. They are responsible for fast-moving goods. We also have one responsible for motor vehicles. I mean, of course, from time to time, we do inspections, we conduct inspections. I think you would have noticed, Sia, of late that we are focusing on food safety. And of course, we do other inspections as well in as far as the Consumer Protection Act is concerned. Firstly, let's look, who is a consumer in the Republic of South Africa? It's you and I, the vulnerable, young children, those who cannot read or write. And of course, for as long they purchase goods in the Republic of South Africa, be it online or in stores, those are the consumers we are actually protecting in as far as, you know, the CPA. And of course, if goods are being marketed to them, they are being offered to them, we make sure that those goods must be compliant and of course must be of good quality. And of course, a consumer, where they enter into a transaction, to say offer to buy or to buy, we exist to protect those consumers in South Africa. We have various consumer rights. I'm not even going to bore you with a lot, but we also have a right as consumers to choose a supplier. We have a right to choose the goods and services we want to buy. We have a right, as South African consumers, to receive information in as far as the goods we are about to buy or we are buying, the right to quality of those goods, the right to fair and responsible marketing, and of course, the right to fair dealings, basically to say where there are contraventions in as far as, overselling or overbooking, where the CPA actually prohibits unconscionable conduct, where a supplier will actually put themselves or their interest first before the right of the consumer. We do come in there as the National Consumer Commission. And of course, we've mentioned the issue of quality. We've mentioned the issue, basically to say when you buy goods in the Republic of South Africa, it is expected that those goods meet your expectation as a consumer. And of course, where you feel that the goods do not meet the expectations, either there's a default or you are not just happy. Particularly if you've purchased online, there is a redress in as far as the Consumer Protection Act is concerned. But also, there's also a responsibility or responsibilities expected from the side of the supplier to ensure that they meet consumers halfway to minimize the issue or the situation where consumers have now to go an extra mile, like filing complaints with the NCC, try to mediate as the NCC, or even take matters to the consumer tribunal. This is my favorite quote by Mahatma Gandhi. He said this some years ago, I think some 1890, when he visited South Africa, where he said, a customer should not be treated as an outsider. He should be given true information about the quality of the products and services, because those goods and services were made for the consumer. The consumer is buying because he wants to buy those goods or he wants to get those services. He favors those goods or services. And because of his purchase, because of him transacting, because of the consumer walking into the store or into the business, businesses are able to pay salaries, businesses are able to survive. I'm bringing this now as we move on to look at the role of the business or the role of the supplier in the Republic of South Africa. The Consumer Protection Act expects that as a supplier of goods and services, you have to have a desk where you are able to resolve consumer complaints in-house. That's priority number one, because we say consumer protection starts with you as a consumer, or it starts with consumers. this is what happens when a consumer buys something. If it does not meet their expectation, of course, they have first to address that with the supplier. And if there are no, they cannot address that with the supplier, it makes it a bit difficult for them now to be heard, as consumers to be heard. Suppliers are encouraged to have a visible desk where they say, if you are not comfortable, you are not happy with the service or the goods you would have purchased from us, be it in store or online, this is the process you need to follow. It needs to be clear. And of course, how they resolve their complaints and how quick their turnaround time. So that if they are not able to meet their turnaround time, the consumer is now able to escalate the matter either to the CGSO for mediation or to the National Consumer Commission or other regulators in as far as the consumer protection is concerned. And of course, they're encouraged to respond to queries quicker, just so that when the consumer leaves the store, they are comfortable. When they drop the call, they are comfortable. They are heard, they are understood, and they are able to say, I'm expecting a resolution over 7 days, over 15 days. And of course, they are also expected to say, what happens if we are not able to resolve your issue over? If, for example, you wanted a refund and they are not able to give a refund, or as a supplier, you are not able to give a refund over a period of 14 days, what needs to happen? Those needs to be clear, to the consumer to say, if you're not comfortable, you are not happy, these are the steps or channels you need to follow to make it easier for the consumer. Mahatma Gandhi also once said, a customer is not dependent on us as suppliers. We actually depend on them. It is our job to handle them properly, just to make sure that they come back. Now, what happens if a consumer, they buy goods that are not comfortable? Or what is it that they're expecting when they walk into the store? Or they transact online, as we see now that most consumers are transacting online. There's a promise that the supplier needs to give that goods are of good quality, and of course, that is a value to the consumer and to the supplier as well. The supplier also needs to say they need to have means of production, just to make sure that we pride ourselves of quality. The goods that we are producing are of good quality. And what happens if the quality is compromised? We go back to the issue of dispute resolution. And of course, a supplier, a consumer will forever be walking into your store because they are happy, their rights are understood, they are heard, and of course, where there's a dispute, you are willing to resolve the dispute. Let's say now a consumer approaches the supplier or they walk into the store to buy goods and services, and then something happens. Of course, that means trust would have been compromised a bit. There has to be an opportunity for the consumer to get redress in one way or the other. If you buy as a consumer, you bought something online and you did not get the opportunity to inspect those goods, you just saw a beautiful garment online, you want to buy it. When you try it on, either there's a defect or the size is not, it's a bit tight or it's a bit loose. You have a right to return it to the supplier. And say, please assist with a refund or a replacement. And of course, if there are issues of quality as well, again, you also tell the supplier that please assist with a refund, replacement, or replace, or replace or refund or repair this particular product. And of course, if you buy from store, there's also what we call the section 56 of the CPA that requires that within a period of 6 months, should a product that you would have purchased manifest a defect, you have the right to take it back to the supplier. And Makumalo, this is where we say, now as a consumer, you exercise your right, you choose one of the 3 R's. You say to the supplier, repair this good, or replace it, or refund me, not the other way around. This is where we get a lot of complaints as the National Consumer Commission, be it motor vehicles or goods in general, fast moving goods, where consumer would clearly state that they want a refund. It's not a buyer's remorse, but it's a refund. And the supplier would say, no, we are going to replace it. We don't issue refunds or no refund, no replacement, or, this is where we really want to urge suppliers. We want to nudge suppliers to say, familiarize yourself with the Consumer Protection Act and make it easier for the consumer. When they purchase, you have that dispute resolution desk and you are able to provide as they require. Because the idea here is to make sure that when they leave your store, they are comfortable and they are able to recommend you to their families or to their friends. And of course, we also have, as suppliers, there's also a responsibility in as far as marketing of goods and services. When can you market to South African consumers? How do you market to South African consumers? Right now, we know that as we are bombarded by marketers selling us goods and services, calling left, right, center. We are proud to say, as the National Consumer Commission, we have put together what is called the opt-out registry. Very soon we will be, in fact, we have gazetted the guidelines to say, go comment. This is how we want to protect you as a consumer. And this is how we want to encourage suppliers to really adhere to the provisions of the Consumer Protection Act. This is when you can call the consumer between 8 in the morning and 8 in the evening. On Saturdays, again, on public holidays and Sundays, we are not expecting calls from the marketers or from the suppliers, not unless you would have arranged to say, I'm available on Saturday, on Sunday, or I'm available on Saturday at 3 o'clock. You need to agree. Only then they can contact you. Other than that, by law, they are not allowed to contact you after 1 o'clock on Saturday. Once the registry, the regulations are promulgated, we will inform South Africans to say, this is now, we are ready for you to join the movement, opt out from unwanted direct marketing, just so that we can enjoy our lunch and breakfast without the interruption of phone calls. There's also a responsibility of a consumer, or of a supplier rather, when it comes to contracts, particularly the ones that are concluded online. You receive a call as a consumer, they are selling you this particular cell phone that you long wanted, or whatever that you want. There's something called a cooling off period, that within a period of 5 business days, you can change your mind and say, oops, I don't think I actually applied my mind here. When I look at my finances, they don't agree with me. Or I actually do have the service that I've just purchased. Or at times you were even misled into believing that you are buying something else. And then you receive a notification that you bought this and this is how much they're going to charge you. Because that is a transaction that happened, or an agreement that happened online or over the phone rather, you have a period of 5 business days to cancel the transaction. You call them or you contact them. And it's a responsibility now of the supplier to agree to say, it's okay, we understand, we are canceling the business or the transaction. And if there was money that was already debited or paid by the consumer for the goods, it is expected that they refund the consumer within a period of 15 days after the cancellation of a transaction. And of course, there are other responsibilities in as far as if goods are not fit for purpose, for example. This is where we come in as the National Consumer Commission and say, as suppliers, it's our responsibility now to inform the consumers that that particular vehicle you bought, it's not safe, it's not fit for purpose. That particular bread, for example, laptop, you name it, it's not fit for purpose. And of course, you need to say to the consumer, if you use it, this is what is going to happen. Bring it back for a full refund or a replacement, if any. And when we are announcing a product recall or goods are rendered not being fit for purpose, the law, the CPA does not really require that you have proof of purchase. You take it back to the supplier. They are expected to give you a refund. If you want a replacement, they can replace that particular product for you. But where you have purchased goods as a consumer, you go to, I know Chepa is one of your members, Makomalo, and you go to them and say, I want this particular dress. They take measurements and everything. Upon delivery, you change your mind. Remember, that was a special order. Or you buy couches. You say to Sia, please, I want you to help me. I need this particular couch, this design. That is a special order, and it cannot be returned, not unless you get someone who says, I'm willing to buy this one. It's fine. See, I can return it, but I'm going to buy it. And we see consumers returning tombstones back to the supplier. It puts them in a predicament, because at times you really want to understand the situation that they can no longer proceed with the tombstone unveiling. But at the same time, it was a special order. Names are engraved already. Everything is there. What do they do with that particular order? This is where the law says, if you cannot find a solution with the supplier to say, maybe I'm going to pay and leave it there up until I'm done, unfortunately, the CPA will not come in there to assist you, because it was a special order. And of course, we see where consumers or suppliers would say, if you buy this particular dress with a duke and a scarf, where they bangle goods, or let's use a kettle and a toaster, for example, there has to be a benefit to the consumer to say, if you buy a toaster alone, you're going to pay 3,000 rands. And you buy a kettle, it's going to be 3,000 rands. In total, it's 6,000. But if we bundle the two, you are going to pay 5,800 rands. There has to be value to the consumer. We see consumers buying or being misled into believing that there's a special or a discount. And as they add those goods, you realize that actually they were being overcharged. When it comes to combos, grocery combos, it's where exactly we see this trend. And we say to suppliers and retailers, be mindful of the law, that if you are going to bundle goods, make sure that there is value to the consumer, even if it's just not as big as 200 rands. But there has to be value, so that when they buy the goods, they are comfortable and they know that they are saving. I mentioned, I quoted Mahatma Gandhi earlier on, where he said, as consumers, we have the right to receive information about goods we are about to buy. Umakumalo also mentioned the issue of fabric, that is, we don't have enough fabric in the Republic of South Africa. One of the provisions of the Consumer Protection Act is to say to suppliers, to importers, if you're going to import goods into the Republic of South Africa, make sure that those goods do comply with the law. When you buy goods from outside the country, one, there has to be a country of origin. This fabric was made in whatever country, and this is how you take care of the fabric. And this is the fiber content. And of course, that must be written in English as well, just to make it easier for the consumer. But we see a lot of suppliers, we detain a lot of consignments. A month we can detain up to goods to the value of nothing less than 10 million. Where now, when we look at the goods, they don't comply with the provision of the CPA. Either they are not labeled or completely labeled. There is no trade description, country of origin, the care label, and basically, the size and all that, or they are written in foreign language. The law says those goods cannot make it into the Republic of South Africa. This is where the CPA says it's either you return them back to the country of origin, or you destroy or destruct those goods at your own expenses. It's a bit of a loss to the suppliers, especially to the small or small and medium enterprises. This is where we really appreciate this opportunity to say, make sure that you do comply with the provision. Can you imagine having to receive or to buy goods to the value of 4 million rands and have to return them back to the country of origin? And some of the countries, if they don't have at the country of origin, they don't have a label that says this product was made, let's say Indonesia, for example, and they're returning it because it does not meet the requirements of the Republic of South Africa. They would say it's not our product. This is not our consignment. It means it's a loss to the supplier rather. 4 million down the drain or up the smoke. Do comply with the provisions of the Consumer Protection Act. And of course, we mentioned the issue of language. It must be understandable. It must be in English, and where possible, one of the South African languages, to make it easier for the consumer, the vulnerable, the ones who cannot read, to understand, the one who cannot understand English, to be able to say, I am buying cramplin, I am buying milli meal, not flour. And of course, the prices must be in South African rands, not dollars, not euros. And of course, the name of the supplier, the address. This is to ensure that should there be an issue with the product itself, a consumer is able to take it back or is able to approach the producer, the manufacturer, or the supplier to say, I am not comfortable, this is what is happening with the product. And of course, where a consumer is going to pay taxes, that also needs to be clearly stated in the transaction or the receipt. And of course, if you want a quotation, give them a quotation, it's free. We've seen suppliers charging for a quotation. As we move along, and of course, a responsibility on the side of the supplier, it's what we encourage: responsible marketing. We mentioned product labeling and trade descriptions, that they must not be misleading. With direct marketers, again, we've, to say, make sure that when you market to the consumer, be it online, be clear, do not mislead the consumer. And of course, if they are going to cancel the transaction, particularly over a period of a calling off period, make it a point that you do listen to their, their request to cancel, and you cancel that transaction. We see this a lot with bigger suppliers, service providers, particularly when it comes to, the telecommunication suppliers, where they really do not adhere to the calling off period. We also have issues with the promotional offers, where they would say, you buy this and then you get a free gift. As when you go and claim as a consumer your gift, they would say, sorry, this was, this was for only the first 100 consumers. And they did not state that. We say, if you're going to run promotional, promotions, make sure that you adhere to the rules of the competition. You clearly state that it's for 100 consumers or the first 100 consumers. And of course, if you have, you have met that number of 100, you remove that, note to say you have reached the quota, just to make it easier again for the consumer. And of course, if a supplier accepts prepayment or payment to say it's a deposit, and they realize that they are not able now to fulfill the order, or for some reason they cannot, fulfill the order, a consumer can request a refund. And of course, you are requested or required to make sure that you provide that particular refund. And of course, there are also provisions where, for example, if you have, it was a lay-by, and I'm cancelling a lay-by before I cannot proceed with the lay-by, I have to cancel. There's a provision that you can charge me as a consumer, you can charge me a reasonable cancellation penalty. Reasonable, not your 75%, not your 50%. It must be reasonable. We've seen suppliers saying, we'll charge you 75% of the value of the goods, not even of what you have paid. Now you buy something of 3,000 rands, rather lay by some goods to the value of 3,000 rands, you pay 500 rands, and then they say we will charge you 75% of 3,000 rands. They are literally forcing you to continue and buy those particular goods. Now, when it comes to quality of service, I take my my motor vehicle, or I take my dress to a dressmaker, or my couch, for them to fix it. It's expected that they need to treat it or handle it with care up until I am done with the payment. If, for example, I have to they fix it and I'm still not happy, they need to fix it up until I am comfortable. There's a provision, again, in as far as the CPA is concerned, that if you are not comfortable, they take it, they agree that they are going to fix, be it your couch, your vehicle, or whatever. And within a period of 3 months, you should not experience the same defect, or you should not experience new defects. It basically means that they did not fix it properly. You take it back to them up until you are comfortable that it is properly fixed. And of course, you can request, if they cannot fix it, you can request them to say, charge me for the work or the service you have done, and not the entire invoice. It's a provision. It's expected of the consumer, of the supplier. Let's make it easier for the consumer when they experience that, and quickly say, let's resolve this issue, so that we don't run to the consumer tribunal or other laws. And of course, returns and refunds. I remember, Sia, one day I received a call from a supplier saying, a consumer bought shoes, they are locally made, beautiful shoes, but unfortunately, some of us, my left foot, it's slightly smaller than my right foot. It was the case with this consumer. Now they bought, and when they fit the shoe, it's the same story. The right foot, it's a bit uncomfortable. Now she's taking it back, and the supplier says, no, but it was clear that no refund or no return. The good does not fit for purpose. So it's expected of the consumer to say, if the goods are not fit for purpose, you want a refund, make sure that you refund. Or if you want a replacement, make sure that you replace them, and a return as well. We see a lot of other issues when it comes to online transaction. I'm not even going to go abroad, because we are talking proudly South African, where a consumer would buy something online in the Republic of South Africa. And of course, when they receive those goods, it's either they receive something that it's totally different from what they would have purchased or what they saw. It's not what they purchased, and the supplier will just turn a blind eye and say, you have bought, they keep it moving, or they will make it difficult for the consumer to return the goods. They would say, because it's their fault as the supplier, they have delivered what the consumer did not purchase. The law expects suppliers to accept returns, in fact, to collect the goods. Where consumers are changing, it's a change of heart. And of course, they will depend on the supplier to say, okay, we do take exchanges or refunds, but over a period of 30 days or within a period of 30 days. If it's beyond 30 days, and of course now we cannot assist you, but make it easier for the consumer. And if we've seen suppliers, they would say 7 days, or if you've tried it, you were in the store, you tried it, you were happy, and the CPA cannot cover you there. That's why we say, if the supplier has, they are redressed, they can assist consumers, make it easier for them. And of course, if they want a refund, make sure that you are able to refund. If it's faulty, by all means, exchange it, replace it, or refund the consumer. And of course, we have seen suppliers again saying they do not provide warranty. This is unfortunately against the Consumer Protection Act. You have to provide warranty, minimum of 6 months. That is why we say, when you provide goods, we need to understand who the manufacturer is, should there be a product failure or a defect. And if you are a middleman, you are just a distributor, you also have to make it easier for the consumer when they say this product failed or it manifested defects. You need to be able to say you can return it, we will be able to refund you, or we'll be able to replace that particular, or the good that you would have wanted. And of course, we made mention of the lay-by, that there has to be, if you want to terminate, you are allowed to terminate a lay-by as a consumer. Make it easier for the consumer. And of course, you can charge them a termination fee. 1% is what we want. Ordinarily, we wouldn't even actually say, but we understand that someone might have actually bought that particular good. So you are allowed to charge them a reasonable termination or cancellation fee of 1%, not 10%, not 30%, not even 75%. Now, what happens if the product, it does not meet your expectation, as mentioned, that is a product failure? Make it easier for the consumer. The contact details on the receipt will actually assist the consumer to say, there's a defect here, I want to take it back, I want a refund, or I want a replacement. It will assist if goods are properly labeled. You know who manufactured this one. What I enjoy, Makumalo, when it comes to members of Proudly South African, it's so fulfilling to see a product and then it says Proudly South African or a product of South Africa. It makes you so happy. You wear that particular garment with pride because you know that you are not only contributing, you are not only promoting, the South African brand, but you're also contributing, to job creation in the Republic of South Africa. That's why we say, if now there are defects in the market, with your product, make it easier for the consumer to be able to return those particular goods, and you assist them, with a refund, replacement, and of course, or an exchange. There are opportunities, of course, for suppliers in the market. There are stores, Sia, where once after your purchase, they give you about 2 or 3 days, and then they will send you an email to say, rate our service, or how was your experience? It actually assists you as a supplier to understand your consumer. You understand exactly what is that they would appreciate, be it customer service, the quality of goods, or anything. They can give you good or bad reviews. We shouldn't wait for consumers to go to X, to go to Hello Peter, to give us bad reviews. It happens, and we should not wait for that opportunity or for that to fix, our affairs. Reach out to the consumer, and of course, in a manageable or controlled manner, considering the fact that very soon we will be running with the opt-out registry. So you need to make it easier that when you do that, you are also compliant with the provisions of the Consumer Protection Act. And of course, engage with the consumers just to understand what is it that they're expecting. Don't wait for them to come to you and they are not happy, they are angry, and then the situation might not be conducive. And of course, you want to protect your brand. You want to protect, your store. You want to protect your employees. Make sure that when they come in, as angry as they are, you just try to calm them down and try to resolve the concern as soon as it's humanly possible. So yeah, that's my story. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very getting to the punchline there, saying that's your story. And what a fascinating story that is as the National Consumer Commission of South Africa. Thank you for giving us that insight. Thank you for also delivering it in a way that makes us practically see what you do and able to practically also learn that there are processes, that there are systems, that there are structures that support us in prioritizing localization, so that should it be us or whether it should be people who we encounter who say, well, how is it possible? Well, you have been able to remind us and teach us how exactly it is possible. So thank you very much for giving us your insights and giving us of your time, Ms. Peton Daba there, representing the National Consumer Commission. Please, by the way, keep your questions and your comments coming through via our live chat, or whether you are joining us on any one of our social media platforms. We are on our website as well, proudlysa.co.za. That's www.proudlysa.co.za. You can find us at proudly.sa on Instagram, at Proudly SA on X, or Proudly South African on Facebook and LinkedIn. As we now move on with our program, I wonder, what do you think is the role of local government in promoting and supporting small businesses within municipalities? Well, our next speaker is one person that can certainly be able to answer that. His name is Mxolisi Mchunu. He's a specialist for economic development at South African Local Government Associate, where he continues to leverage his extensive expertise and knowledge to contribute to the advancement of economic development within the local government sphere. Olisi, good morning, over to you. And I do understand that we are now pressed for time. I would like you to cover as much as you can, but please also be cognizant of our time. Olisi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sia. Greetings to everyone, especially those who are joining us live online. For us, it's a great pleasure to be invited to this Proudly SA webinar, and we will be sharing some insights with regards to the work that we are doing as local government in terms of trying to support small businesses, but more than anything, trying to ensure that we can also lead the charge in terms of our own procurement strategies, where we can procure more goods locally as municipalities. So if you may allow me to please share my screen, I think the previous presenter will just need to stop sharing theirs quickly. Yes, thank you so much. As I was indicating, and I hope my screen is showing that side, as I was making a point that my presentation is focusing on how, as local government, we are employing strategic procurement as a lever in order to stimulate local economic development. So in the interest of time, I will glance through some of the slides. I mean, if you look at the first few slides, really are more of a preamble. And this one really sums it up in terms of the level of inequality that continues to bedevil our country. I mean, if you look at the screen, we have a crisis that are really defined as one that is now existential and that threatens the very existence of our country. And as local government, the way we view local economic development is that we see it more as an outcome, in a sense that if we play our part in providing the right level of services, such as reliable water, electricity, waste management, and ensure that our towns and cities are clean, then as an outcome, you get local economic development. And also the fact that service delivery on its is the backbone of local economic development, and conversely, lack of services can serve as a hindrance to LED. And again, we have to acknowledge that we are dealing with an uneven playing field, and it's not in any way incidental, but it's structural and largely denominated by race. And as government and local government specifically, we can use strategic procurement as one of the many instruments that we can employ in order to bridge the inequality gap and transform our economies. We also have a market concentration conundrum. And I'm sure the speaker from the National Consumer Commission is, maybe privy to, some of the challenges that we face in this domain. So as an economy, we are heavily concentrated, and we've got a few companies that really dominate the lion's share of the market in almost every sector. And this does really hamper the decentralization efforts when it comes to procurement by government. So case in point is a number of inquiries which have been commissioned by the Competition Commission. For instance, when it comes to the retail sector in shopping malls, where it found that there were some lease agreements which had some exclusivity clauses in them. But this practice is pervasive in other sectors too, where you've got big companies engaging in practices, like colluding, for instance, in the construction sector, and this was unraveled by the Competition Commission. But then it just makes you wonder how many other cases, similar cases, that have not been uncovered as yet. But the point I want to make here is that we've got a big challenge of an economy that is concentrated, dominated by a few big players, and this really does undermine all our efforts of transformation and also decentralizing the economy. Again, now, distilling the concept of LED, I have made this point briefly, and I'm not going to elaborate, but safe to say that LED is more of an outcome emanating from us as municipalities, making sure that we deliver the right level of services, we cut red tape, and we ensure that we can also improve on many important business indicators, such as, for instance, turnaround time and being responsive to business needs. So as local government, we are making a case for local procurement, and to this end, we are already leading from the front in terms of supporting small enterprises and procuring as many goods and services as possible locally. So as municipalities, we possess a significant yet often underutilized tool to invigorate the local economy, and that is local procurement. And our view is that by prioritizing the purchase of goods and services from our local suppliers, and using our substantial spending power, and we can create jobs and stimulate the local economy and also foster entrepreneurship. And so for us, we see local procurement as not merely being an economic strategy, but also a powerful instrument that we can use to address the many deep-seated inequalities that have continued to plague our economic landscape for decades. And we believe that also, if by directing our municipal budgets, estimated to be over 50 billion, we can go a long way in terms of promoting inclusive growth, also enhancing local sustainability by ensuring that we can build strong local supply chains, reducing dependence on external suppliers, and also enhance economic self-sufficiency of those locations, but more than anything, also enhance sustainable economic development. We can also use local procurement as a tool to advance restorative justice. I have made a point earlier on that we are a country that is confronted by chronic inequality, and that is deeply rooted, of course, in our past. So we've got a duty as government to ensure that we can pursue restorative justice and ensure that those members of society that have been historically, and I dare say also currently marginalized, that we can play our part, as government in terms of how we distribute our own procurement resources. But we're also not blind to the many challenges that municipalities face around local procurement. I mean, in many municipalities, especially when it comes to rural and to some degree medium-sized municipalities, there's a big issue around the limited supply base, where we don't have, the supply with the right capacity, skills, and resources to fulfill municipal procurement requirements. We also have a big challenge around quality and standards compliance, and where you find that local businesses often struggle to meet the required standard in terms of those goods and services. Bureaucracy is also an issue. We know that procurement is one of the most regulated areas in government, and for the right reasons, of course. But then we find that small businesses do not struggle to navigate the bureaucracy and the compliance requirements which are there, and that does then mean that they fall short in many cases of meeting those requirements. And of course, value for money. As municipalities, we have a duty to ensure that when we procure, we are able to achieve value for money. So we find that with small businesses, for instance, especially in smaller towns. They would get a municipal contract, but then they would go, for instance, to bigger cities like Gauteng to go and purchase those goods, and then they bring them back to the municipality with a markup and selling it back, for a profit. And this is not sustainable. It does undermine all our efforts in terms of trying to empower local businesses. I want to touch quickly on the strategic procurement and how it enhances the local multiplier effect. We know the studies have shown that when consumers spend their money at local businesses, the benefits tend to multiply and have a compounding effect on the local economy. And this is known as the local multiplier effect. So essentially here, we are saying that as consumers spend locally, they tend to create more jobs because you have more transactions locally, and that does have a positive impact in terms of job creation. So this is what we need to encourage. We need to ensure that as many rands as possible are spent locally. I mean, if you see the image there on the screen, when one person has got a spaza shop in the township, they spend 100 rands, at the next business. That business does the same, spends at their local saloon. So now you've got over 400 rands of transactions within the local economy. And this is the bedrock of local economic development. Economies that prosper have got more transactions taking place locally. So what we find in mostly our black townships is that each rand would circulate plus minus 3 times before it's expatriated to other parts, to other more affluent areas. Whereas if you go to those more established locations, you've got more of this rand circulating, and this compounding effect creates more jobs, and it ensures that more people can open up businesses, and those transactions really are pivotal. They're the lifeblood of any economy. So as local government, we are leading from the front in terms of local procurement. And to this end, we're already trying to embed this new way of thinking by training municipalities and supply chain practitioners around procurement. That, for instance, if you're a supply chain official, your work goes beyond just finance and sourcing 3 quotations and getting the lowest, but you also have to use procurement as means to help us achieve our own local economic development outcomes. So this is what we are doing around local procurement, and trying to embed this new culture and train municipalities on why it's important to procure locally. We do think that the new Public Procurement Act that has been signed into law by the President is a game changer. I think it presents a seismic shift in the procurement landscape. Yes, it has not yet come into law, but if you look at some of the provisions, for instance, they are transformational in nature, in that for the first time, it does have set aside for preferential procurement, in that now you can define a geographic space that you want to target procurement opportunities, and you can define a particular group. You can say for this particular contract, we are targeting the youth only, for instance, or you can say we are targeting the disabled, Black Africans, Black women, for instance. So you can have any contract curated in a way that you are targeting specific groups and be intentional about it, and all of that will still be within the law as there are provisions made for it in the Public Procurement Act. So we do believe that we need to seize the opportunity. It is there as a legal instrument, but it will only be as effective as the extent to which we are able to really harness and seize this great opportunity. I also want to speak on the enterprise and supply development. Local procurement will only be effective as the extent to which we can develop these enterprises to a point where they are matured enough to access some of these opportunities. So we need to invest heavily as government as well, on enterprise and supply development, so that, in the long run, these businesses are sustainable, because supply chain procurement is at the tail end of the entire, value chain. But we need to make sure that, we can work on these different steps, on supply development. And also, as local government, what we are saying that, with infrastructure being the biggest spending item, we think we can leverage that to try and, design our specifications and contracts in a way that they can also incorporate the local element in them, whether it's sourcing of local raw materials or whether it's around the contracting itself. So we have to work around designing these contracts and being intentional about them to ensure that we can give more opportunities for local procurement. And last but not least, really to reiterate the point around enterprise and supply development, we need to invest heavily in training, funding, and also mentorship of local businesses, because this is the only way we can enable them to compete, and also be in a position where they can execute municipal contracts successfully. Thank you so much, Program Director. Thanks for the opportunity once more.
Mr. Mxolisi there, thank you so much for sharing your great knowledge around this, and more information on the incredible work that is done by the South African Local Government Associate can be found on their website, and you can do so by visiting them on salga.org.za. That's www.salga.org.za. And that was Mxolisi sharing his great knowledge this morning as the specialist for economic development at the South African Local Government Associate. Please do remember that we will be wrapping up shortly with our Q&A session. So perhaps if you have any questions or comments for any one of our speakers thus far this morning, please do pop them through in the live chat. And you can also share them on our various social media pages. That is at proudly.sa on Instagram, Proudly SA on X, formerly known as Twitter, or Proudly South African on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can connect with us on either one of those platforms and share your comments, and perhaps even if you don't have a comment, share it with someone who you know would benefit from hearing about today's conversation. If you've just tuned into the live stream, welcome to it. You are just in time for our last, but definitely not least speaker. In the meantime, though, this is the Buy Local, Grow Local webinar conversation that is put together by Proudly South African. We are taking a look at the power of consumer choices. And my name is Sia Sangweni, very proud to be your facilitator today, taking you through this conversation. Now, let's move on to shining the spotlight on some interesting things that are taking place at the University of Pretoria. Did you know that they are really raising the bar when it comes to the first ever customer experience national benchmark that is developed in South Africa? Our next speaker who will be speaking more about this and shedding more light on this is Professor Andre Struder, and he is the professor and head of chair in customer experience management. And from the 1st of September in 2022, the prof was appointed at the University of Pretoria as a full professor to launch a world-first industry chair in customer experience management. There's a lot of great gems of knowledge that the professor has that will be able to be an example for us to learn as we implement it in our own industries and our own companies, and as this conversation is all about moving that needle and evolving the South African economy and South African industries forward as we truly prioritize localization. So I've been saying this over and over, consistently so this morning. Get ready to take notes because the professor's here. Good morning, Professor. Professor Andre, over to you.
Good morning, Sia. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share with you. I am going to just make sure that we can see the screen on the PowerPoint. Can I just get an audio confirmation?
Yes, thank you.
Good morning to all the delegates, all the panelists, and all the, let's call it, all the screening viewers. I see that we have a large audience, and I'm really humbled in terms of this opportunity. Yes, I'm going to share with you something that is making me very proudly South African. I think we should actually change the MAGA, Make American Great Again, we should actually call it Masaga, Make South Africa Great Again. And one of that is an approach, and I'm going to immediately jump into, it was said, yes, I started the opportunity to start a first ever chair in customer experience at the University of Pretoria. It is literally formalizing the study of customers' experience as they engage, buy, and use products and services in South Africa. So very excited. I'm very honored to be asked to do this particular piece of work. And in a previous session from Petin Tava, she quoted Mahatma Gandhi's very true words there. And I would like to highlight, customers have the right to true information about the quality of products and services. Now, that has been really bugging me for many, many years. How do you really provide that true information in this day and age with false information, information that is flying around? You cannot really verify the quality and the source behind it and the credibility behind it. I think it's high time that we do something. So way back in 2012, in a previously owned company, I brought a similar type of index to South Africa called the South African Customer Satisfaction Index, but that was a licensed product from the American Customer Satisfaction Index. And I was always contemplating, but we need something that is truly South African, but more so something that is really sort of addressing the gap that customer experience is, that experience that customers have with products and services, and specifically relating to the quality. And I'm going to briefly show you this, something that we've been very proud about to develop. So let me take you on a little bit of a quick history lesson. I think it's Maya Angelou that says you only would know where you're going if you know where you're coming from. And I'm starting way back when in the 1930s with, he's actually called a sir now. He's been given that acknowledgement by the English government. Professor Edwards Deming, Sir Edwards Deming, that started the whole movement on product quality and zero defect and TQM. And now today we have a range of different standards like ISO and so on to ensure that we have quality production and quality products. But we've been missing the point about a little bit on the quality of service, and specifically the quality of the experience. So recently we've seen the emergence of some new standards, but standards is only the actual portfolio of evidence to provide proof that you're doing it. What is below that? So in 1984, we've seen three colleagues of mine, Parasuruman, Len Berry, and Valerie Zaitamal and Len Berry, that developed the first ever measure of quality of service called ServQual, and it started to change the world. And a few years later, in 1996, Klaus Fornell at the University of Michigan was asked to develop a satisfaction index called the American Customer Satisfaction Index. Following that, and that's 8 years ago, Fred Reichelt in 2003 published this very famous one number article in the Harvard Business Review called the Net Promoter Score. And the world has never been the same ever since, because top executives actually embrace that as a metric to actually say we are doing good. But there's quite a number of deficiencies in that because it misses expectations and quite a number of other things. In 2010, I was privileged to attend the conference in Karlstad in Sweden. Phil Klaus launched the so-called EXQ, Customer Experience Quality, but it never really got traction in terms of commercial acceptance. And more recently, Fred Reichelt then also came back and he called it Net Promoters or NPS 3.0, and he talked about the earned growth ratio. I'm very, very honored to say that we have, since I sold the company in 2019, and I've been asked to start the chair, one of my first objectives was to actually develop something that we can really address the customer experience and the quality of that experience. And that has been done in 2023. We're in our first year of official commercial measurement of that, and I will show you that a little bit later on. The customer experience is quite a divergent sort of topic. If you think about the English word experience, there's actually two components of that. There's the verb, the outcome part of it, and the verb component. The outcome is more of a noun. It's more cognitive. It's more knowledge-based. So it's what you can remember of something. We often talk about you have experience in, and that refers to your knowledge gained. So that's the cognitive part of it. Whereas the affective part, the process, talks about the emotions. And here we have a little bit of a let's call it a marketer's confusion. You will see that in German and Afrikaans, and I've recently also learned that it's also in some of the other Germanic languages, for instance, in French. We have definitely two different views of experience. The ervaring, which is the Afrikaans word is ervaring, and you will see that it links to experience. But it's missing something. It's missing that let's call it emotional component, and then the second component is missed, and that is the erlebnis or the erleben that we talk about, which is really the process of the lived experience. And we have not seen that in any of the measurements at all. So the cognitive measures in the previous ACSI was not sufficient. You'll see the quote that I'm referring to, measure of quality and satisfaction. It's been criticized for bias towards cognitive views, and it's missing the affective component. And therefore, the need for a customer experience measure and benchmark was really quite true, where we include cognitive, emotional, behavioral, sensorial, and social responses as part of the actual experience evaluation. So I'm very honored to share this with you. I know this is lifting the engine, hood of the engine, to show you the inner workings of how this model looks like. I'm not going to spend time on the technicalities of it. I think the important thing here is that the norm fit index, which is the indication of the quality and the reliability and the validity of this model, is 0.98 on a minimum cutoff point of 0.9. So it's really a very, very significant and an important component. I would like to highlight a couple of things here. You'll see quality of experience. In the NCC presentation, we've actually talked about the quality aspect. We call it quality of experience. That includes the quality of the product, includes the quality of the relationship. Then there's also the value, whether you believe that there's value. That then links up in a causal fashion to the customer experience index. It links to the satisfaction of the experience. And then you could perhaps have some sort of a problem or an issue or a concern or a query, and therefore it will moderate the ultimate loyalty, whether you would recommend, whether you are positive about it, and whether you would talk positively about it in terms of behavior. And this is a typical outcome. We're currently in the first industry completion, first full year industry completion of banks. And by the end of the year, we would finish that up, and we will publish the first ever media release of how do banks compare across different channels and across different products. So therefore, we would say, which of the banks have the best branch experience? Which of the banks have the best credit card? Which of the banks have the best app? And this is typically how we would do it in a very scientific, a very valid, and a very rigorous format. So within this whole thing, we actually had to position it correctly. A lot of companies would measure their net promoter score. That's what I call, you would keep your finger on the pulse. But that's not sufficient. That's a short question. It's not really giving us sufficient understanding of whether the quality and the experience is good or not. But the strategic part of it is where you will look back at a little bit more of a view of the total experience. That's cumulative number of engagements, and therefore it will then be over there. The competitive measure is where the customer experience index comes in. And then we even align that with the International Customer Experience Institute's standards. So those of you that's not aware of it, it is possible now to actually get yourself certified as a company for customer experience standards. And for SMEs around there, there's a standard that actually would be able to even address your particular needs. And we call it a navigator standard. And that definitely is something that's very, very interesting to come forward in terms of the future. What can you expect from a customer experience measure like this? Dashboard reporting, so you would be able to see much more detailed insights. It will be continuous measurement so that we can literally track it as it happens over the year. It will be a world-class system. It will add to what we call the experience-based growth index so that we can tell customers out there and to clients that actually are the providers and the suppliers, are we actually getting the return on our investment in the efforts that we put forward to provide quality goods and services? It's linked to your strategy, whether it's working, it's linked to the implementation, and obviously, as we said, it's linked to standards. There are the 3 standards for those of you that was wondering. There's the ICXS 2019 standard, there's the digital standard for the more digital propositions, and definitely, very important, the employee part of that. Customer experience and delivery is still reliant on people. I don't think that AI will ever replace people in this regard, and therefore we need to actually even have that included in that. Here's a good example of how we actually would display this result. So if we click on a specific segment, you will immediately see that it will on the fly automatically change the views, and brand C now is the top rated brand. If we look at this one and you click on specific segments, you can actually see how it differs between brands in different channels across different products. So therefore, it is really something that can help us quite a lot. In closure, I want to show you what are some of the major insights. For clients that said they've recently bought, we asked the question, what made you do that? And here's an astonishing statistic. 43% of them said, because I was recommended to, or I was referred to someone else. So clients and customers actually respond to other people talking about this, or their own personal experience. If you've upgraded or bought more, your own personal experience plays a role to the degree of 53%. So I'm making the statement, customer experience here is here to stay, and it's a very, very vital component of that. In closure, something like the Net Promoter Score sometimes can lead us down a straight path. You will see that on the right-hand side graph, I'm showing you the ranking of banks by way of the Net Promoter Score, and Bank C there, with a 55 Net Promoter Score, was ranked number 1. Whereas in our loyalty index, that's part of the customer experience index, Bank E and D was actually the top when it comes to the combined components of loyalty. And therefore, it is actually a much more true reflection of the reality of customer experience. To give you a customer testimonial, I've actually received that just about yesterday, where one of our subscribers said, thank you for all the assistance of the CE report. The presentation went very well and the adoption is incredible. So proudly South African, we're already talking to the UK, we're talking to the Chinese government to actually adopt this, and there's definitely things to come. There's the index website, where anybody that would like to look into this a little bit more. So Sia, just in terms of keeping to the promise of in time, I think, thank you, and over to you for Q&A.
Prof, thank you very much for that. I can tell you are a person who pays special attention to detail because you kept your time. I absolutely appreciate that, Prof, but I won't let you go just yet. We have a question directed at you. Mahotso would love to know, how can you get certified for customer experience?
Oh, yeah, that is a very good question. You can most certainly contact me. We can then help you on the path of that. As I said, there's 3 standards. There's the ICXS 2019, which is more the bricks and mortar retail outlet type of scenario. There's the digital standard, and then there's the employee ones. But then there's also 3 levels. You can do a navigator level, which is the introductory level, right up to certification, where British Standards International would send auditors to actually come and inspect your establishment and measure you against the standard. And then you are allowed to say, I have been certified, like an SABS mark. You will be able to use that in your marketing. So that's the answer to that.
Great. And then, Prof, please just remind us of your website once again.
ce-index.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Prof. And your last words, perhaps, that you'd like to leave our audience with today as we talk about the importance of localization. How would you inspire us to move this conversation from being a conversation today and continue making it a practical and tangible movement in South Africa? Any last comments on that, Prof?
Absolutely. Service delivery is on everyone's minds, and we need to own up to consumer rights. When I actually spoke about the NCC, wonderful work that is being done there. We need to have an independent, credible source where customers can actually go and see what's happening. Just hellopeter.com is erred on the side of complaints. Well, there's companies that uses Hello Peter now to actually also do recommendations. But it's not a proper sample. It is biased by those that had problems, and a little of them that was pushed to the Hello Peter side. But if you want an independent view that is being measured at the customers of those particular establishments, that's where we're aiming at.
Great stuff. Thank you so much there, Prof. And I also see that Mxolisi and Peto are still on the line. I'd like to get each of your final comments on this. Mr. Mxolisi, I'll start off with you. As we wrap up today's session, is there a final word that you'd like to leave our audience with, and particularly on the point of taking this conversation, being truly informed and inspired by it, and continue to now live the life of prioritizing localization? What would you have to say, sir?
No, certainly. Thanks for the opportunity. I think my final words is we need to be bold as a country. Yes, of course, we find ourselves in this global world where we're inundated, for instance, as a country with cheap imports, which have led to a consequence, of course, of completely obliterating local jobs. So we've got to strike a balance in a sense that we've got to also do everything possible to protect local industries and ensure that even those who come and set up locally, we've got to have conditions that they need to create local jobs and also help us to improve our own manufacturing capacity. Globally, countries always, put local companies first and ensure that they can protect local companies, because if you protect them, you also create jobs. So we've got to strike a balance, there. And in terms of local government and government broadly, I think when it comes to local procurement, we have to walk the talk and be the ones who lead from the front. We cannot simply expect that it's the private sector that is to do that. So we've got a massive procurement spend. And we've got to be the ones who lead the charge when it comes to that, and lead from the front. So that's what I can say. But certainly, the foundation of any economy is how it ensures that it protects local industries and grows them to a point where they are competitive. I think if we are going to simply allow unfettered influx of cheap imports from all corners of the world, then I think we are doomed, because with that we're going to kill local jobs, and ultimately it's going to be to the detriment of our own economy. So thank you so much to everyone, and thanks, Sia.
Thank you so much, sir. That's a great illustration there. The foundation of a local economy, a great local economy, is how they protect local jobs. So thank you so much once again for your insight. And last but certainly not least, I'll end off with you, Ms. Peto. I'd love to ask you the same question as well. When we talk about taking everything that we've discussed today and putting it into action and seeing the tangible change, I'd like to get your take on this and give your final word on today's topic. How should we take what we've discussed today and apply it practically?
Thank you so much, Sia. I think great presentations by fellow presenters as well. And I believe that we all learned from today. And of course, we say for us now to be able to move forward, we need to continue with the conversations, because it's a bit difficult to believe that we are going to make a difference after this presentation. But with continuous conversations and reminder that this is where we want to go, to protect jobs, to promote local buying, and of course, adherence to the provisions of various laws. It's important that we continue with the conversations. I want to say to the supplier, in dealings with consumers in the Republic of South Africa, in their ordinary course of business, they are not expected to engage in conduct that is contrary to the Consumer Protection Act and other laws that protect consumers. And of course, they are also not expected, or they are actually, they're not expected to make any representation about the supply of goods, the quality, the service, or anything that is related. Something like this product is proudly South African, it's made in South Africa. And then when you really investigate and open the packaging, you realize that it's actually from a different country. It's a misrepresentation. You would have, we take, we frown upon that. It's important that we really continue with these conversations so that we understand the importance of Proudly South African, where the organization wants to go to, and how best can we protect one another, suppliers, consumers, and the regulators in the space. Thank you so much. We really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you once again to you, Peto. And I love that point that you're leaving us with. Let us continue the conversation. This has been an incredible platform over the course of this morning, but it is certainly not over. From the perspective of Proudly South African, I would like to make a note that Happy Makumalo Ngeti did say that she was busy with work and she's currently in a board meeting, so isn't able to be part of our final comments. But as Peto did say, the conversation continues, and that can certainly continue on the Proudly SA website. Please do visit them on proudlysa.co.za to get more information on this organization, and also to sign up to be a member. If you aren't a member just yet, you certainly want to be part of an organization that is able to open up so many doors, to be able to impart knowledge, but also for you to be able to realize that no man is an island, and you are able to work within this membership organization and be enhanced by that. So that website, once again, is www.proudlysa.co.za. You can also interact with Proudly South African on Instagram. They're at proudly.sa. You can find them on X, formerly known as Twitter. That is at proudlysa. And you can also find them on LinkedIn and Facebook, Proudly South African. Maybe those were one of the social media platforms today that you've been streaming us on. We absolutely appreciate it. Whether you've been here just in time for Prof's talk or whether you've been with us for the duration of the full 2 hours. We absolutely appreciate it, because as I said at the beginning of this discussion, I said this is an offering, this is a platform for us to learn and grow, and this is a way in which we can elevate not only our own businesses, not only our own industries, but the country and our country's economy in general. So let's certainly carry on engaging with one another, and let's carry on also moving and evolving and prioritizing localization. Very, very specifically, if you do have some questions for Proudly South African and you'd like to direct them via email, that option is also available to you. You can kindly refer to their email address, which is info@proudlysa.co.za. That's info@proudlysa.co.za. Easy to remember, right? Exactly. So I want to wrap up by saying a big thank you to our speakers as well today. For really giving of their time, for their thorough and insightful presentations, and for the various work that they do in their different spheres. They are truly able to move the needle in incredible ways. So a big thank you to all of you for making time for that. And to you watching, we absolutely appreciate it. We do hope that by taking in our experts from diverse fields, by seeking and taking in their knowledge from their various perspectives on the value of local consumer choices. I hope you've been inspired. I hope you've been enlightened. And certainly, we hope that you have been informed by this. We shall continue this. Please do keep up with Proudly South African to find more conversations and information platforms like this. And for today in particular, we do hope that you now are walking away with a better understanding of the very critical role that prioritizing localization plays in shaping South Africa's economic future through consumer choices, and how together each and every one of us, be it our businesses or our industries and alike, can all create a more resilient and prosperous nation for all. This has been Buy Local, Grow Local, the Power of Consumer Choices webinar. My name is Sia Sangweni, and until we meet again, see ya.